Hello everyone, Stephanie here. I wanted to let you know that I have finally completed a project that I have thought about for years and years and years and years. And it's finally done and it's finally out on Amazon. And I wanted to show you, if you go to Amazon, it is called But How Does It Print? A Guide for Indie Authors or Designers on How Fonts Look with KDP. So it is 510 pages long. You may look at the price and you may balk at it, but it was 510 pages long. That's the only thing I could do to get uh, to have it a little bit more expensive. I couldn't cut down the pages anymore. So I'm going to give you a sneak preview of what it is, and if you would like to go purchase it, just go to Amazon and do a search, but how does it print? So this is the cover, and on the interior, I kind of have it set up like a normal book, but there's a lot of more details to it. I tried to remember on the page to let you know what font it is, and if I use certain graphics to let you know where the graphics came from, and maybe if I had set it to like some sort of transparency, what I did for that. We're just going to scroll through and look for it. You'll notice I have two half title pages. I'm just trying to give you an idea of how different fonts print and different graphics print. And then I included the cover on the interior for the title page, just so you can see the varying levels of grays and how they print and compare it to the color printer, the color cover. Again, I tell you what fonts I used in that particular layout, and if there's where the artwork came from, and whether I manipulated it or not. So for this one, this is manipulated vector art from Shutterstock and Vecteezy. And then again, here is more another title page just with a different graphic. This feather graphic came from Creative Fabrica, and I set it to 50% opacity. That way you can see how well the text comes through at 50% compared to other percentages. So again, more graphics. You'll notice that the one on the left-hand side is set at 50% opacity. The one at the right-hand side is set at 100% opacity, just to give you that comparison point. Oftentimes, what happens with print books, if we add some sort of graphic on the background and we lighten it, a lot of times it's hard to find exactly what percentage we should use. And so hopefully this book will help you determine what percentages you should use for certain graphics. All right, this is just about our building books group. Here is our part title page. Again, this particular image is set at 50% opacity. And this is part one of the book, where we're going to talk about shades and opacity levels. So in this book, what I did at the beginning is I just created a bunch of text boxes, a bunch of colored rectangles, and put text on top of it, just so you can see how white text interacts with the different percentages of black background. So we start at 100%, go through all the way down to 10%, and then on the next page we do the reverse. We start at 100% black and go all the way down to 10% black. So you can see how well the black text stands out against certain levels of gray. And then here is, in this section, we're going to talk about opacity levels for this particular artwork. This is right now set at 100%. So that's important to know, to see how well white text prints out on 100% black artwork. So, you know, of course, this artwork has this arch here, so there's some white here, or there's some grayscale colors throughout this background. So it's important to, when you get the book, to read it. Oftentimes when I have a graphic that maybe have some lighter colors, I will actually go in with a brush, just a black brush, with a low flow, and cover up those areas just to help the text punch out a little bit better. I did not do that for this because the whole purpose is to see how well we'll see how it turns out, but on screen it is fine to read. So it'll be interesting to see how it turns out in print. Again, here is a background set to 100% opacity with white text. This is a 90% opacity on the image. So just so you can see how it interacts, we'll start seeing as we cycle through these different varying levels of opacity, we'll start seeing where the white text becomes more difficult to read. Okay, this is 80%. Again, we're getting more difficult, 70% more difficult, and I'm sure in print it's going to be even more difficult. So this will help you gauge what color, what percentage of transparency you'll want to set those images. So here, starting at 60%, I flip between black and white text for a little bit, just so you can have, again, a point of comparison. So this is black text on an image that is 60% opacity. Here is white text with 50% opacity on the image, and then the same thing at 50% opacity with black text. Okay, 40%, 30%, 20%, and you'll notice at 40% I started strictly going with black text, whereas 60% and up I strictly stuck with white text. All right, and then here I did 20%, 15%, and then 10% because in my experience, if you want some sort of shaded background, anywhere between 20% and 10% usually works wonders, and so this will give you an idea of what you should set it to, whether you want to do 10%, 15%, or 20%. Right? So part 2 is actually more for my formatting clients. These are the level 1 formatting templates that I have set up for my particular business. I offer 2 levels of formatting. A level 1 is where they pick from 6 pre-designed templates with or without graphics, and then level 2, of course, is custom formatting. So these are my level 1 formatting templates, just so they'll see what they look like. And I think I provide like information, what font was used. So if you wanted to have something, if you liked the way a particular font printed, you would be able to pick it out. All right. So I have 6. This is the second template. This is the template without graphics. This is my third template. This is it without graphics. This is my 4th template, and this is my most popular template. I say probably 30% of the people who come to me for level 1 formatting pick out this template. And I have not seen it in print. I haven't seen it actually printed, so this will be the first time I actually see it print when I get my copies. But the clients have used this, have come back and said it just prints wonderfully, that it looks really, really good. So I'm hoping to see that as well. And silly me, for the dummy text, I use one of my own books that's printed, that's a different author name. So I published this under Alt 19 Publications by Stephanie Anderson. And this book that I use this text for is Alt 19 Publications by Victoria Anders. So I literally had to write a letter from myself to KDP to say I had the right to use this text. So that was kind of a nightmare. But anyway, that's just a little side note. Here is that same template without graphics. And here is my 5th template. It's more. And here it is without graphics. And it's funny, this particular font, Bookmania, it's not my favorite on screen, but when you actually see it printed, oh, books look so good in it. It's a superb font. It just doesn't look as good on screen as it does when you print it out. And that's kind of the whole purpose of this book, is that oftentimes fonts look so different on screen than when they're printed out. We really can't tell the depth, how thick they are, what their weight is, With POD, typically certain fonts, especially Garamond, can print a little lighter than we expect. So it's actually the fonts that look bolder on our computer screen are the ones that typically turn out best. Bookmania is one. Um, Probably one of my most favorite fonts, and it's actually a font that comes with Word that prints superbly, is Book Antiqua. Bookmania and Book Antiqua have some similarities to them. Again, they're a little bold on screen, but they do print wonderfully. So, all right, here is my last and final template, the feathers. And then we are going to go into the heart of the book, which is sample fonts and layouts. So what I did is I went through and created a list of some of the most popular book fonts. I utilize various book fonts, some that you can only get with Adobe, some that are high-end Adobe that doesn't even come in on their, when you do Adobe fonts. It's just a collection that I've had for many years of some great book fonts. And I also used a few Google fonts. There are some really nice Google fonts that are open source that look good in print. And I also, let's see, and I've just used some other fonts that I've had in my collection for years. So what I did, I varied the graphics used just so you can see, you know, if it's vector art or if it was an image, how does it really look in print? It's funny, when I first started doing this, I would very seldom do layouts that had black pages because the quality of print was just so bad and it looked horrible. And throughout the years, the technology has greatly improved, and so, you know, doing black pages is actually something we can do now. It's still not perfect. It's still not as good as if you went to an offset printer and had that print job printed offset. It would look 10 times better. But it definitely has come a long way when we use KDP or Ingram Spark. So this book is to give you a good idea on how things truly print using KDP. Now, Ingram Spark may be a little different, and one day I might add a book just for Ingram Spark if they let me. They're real funny about content for books, and so they may not approve a book like this, but KDP allowed it through, so maybe Ingram Spark will as well. But anyway, it just gives us an idea of what kind of graphics we really wanted to use. Again, I tell you what fonts these are and where the image came from. And for a couple, for each one, I try to do a chapter title page and then a double page spread, just so you can really get an idea of how it looks in print for this particular font. This is a good font to use. This is Athlesis. I don't know, it may be on Adobe Fonts. If not, it's in an Adobe font collection that I have. And it's probably available in my fonts as well. And again, here is a new one. This is public domain images. These are just ink drawings, so you get an idea of what they look like in print. And this is your ever famous Garamond. And then we're going to get into some of the fancier stuff. You have to excuse my computer, it's taking a minute to draw this. It may have a problem with it. It's taken a minute. So we'll probably skip over this page. This gives you an idea of the graphics I kind of used, and then I have white text here as well, so you can kind of see it. So we'll skip over that page because it's having fits. Here's another one, just a little graphic. And a different font. This is my personal favorite. This is what I do all my books. This is ITC Esprit. I think I spelled that wrong. Yeah, it's ESPRIT, not Esprit, but Esprit. All right, and then just another one. So I'm just going to kind of gauge. I really like doing some sort of border or some sort of graphics. I've been doing that a lot for a lot of my authors, especially if they do young adult books. And so I wanted to give some varying layouts on what if you did some sort of decoration on the regular pages. So you'll notice that throughout. I'm just glancing through all the different, I just used a million different things. That's why this book took so long. Different types of graphics that we would see. There's another one that's struggling to view. And you will notice a lot of times, I may have not put it on certain things, but towards the back when I just have a bunch of random graphics in there, you'll see that I included a JPEG, a vector and a raster image, so you can determine which prints better. Here lately, however, if I've had a book that has included vector images, I've had problems with it loading on KDP. So I think they're having certain file issues. So that's just something to be aware of. I had a client that had I used a vector on the inside, and she kept on having trouble loading it, and I converted that vector to a raster image, and she had no problems loading it after that. So just something to be aware of if a client comes back, if you did use vector images, if a client comes back and saying they're having trouble loading their file, that could be it. That would be the first thing to check. So we're just going to scroll through this entire book. Again, just varying graphics so you can see how they print. Wanted to give a good variety just so we would have, you know, enough for every genre out there. And again, let's see if I didn't tell you what percentage I used here. So if you get this book and you want to know more about a certain graphic that I used, just feel free to message me. These are my favorite. This is actually from a cover that I did for a client. These are characters I created for her. So fun. That's why I love doing romance books, because we can do fun stuff. Okay. And this is something I started doing recently. If I have a cover, like a pre-made cover that I created, and I really think that there would be a cool interior formatting job that would go with that cover, I'm actually kind of creating a mock-up of what that interior would look like and offering it as an add-on to that particular pre-made. I'm really into cohesive book products, and so if you can be all matchy-matchy with a cover and the interior, I think that's just so fun. So this was based off a pre-made cover that I created, just to have an option for the interior formatting. All right, so that's the kind of the layouts that we had with varying graphics and varying fonts, and then the next section is just graphics. What I did is I went through my collection, some renders that I created myself, and I probably didn't do a good job of seeing where these came from. Yeah, these are all renders that I created, just to see how they printed. Renders, just so we can see renders. And then I get into, and I didn't do a good job of letting you know where these came from. However, I will be, once I get my copy and reviewing it, I will be probably going through and making a couple of tweaks and adding more details to these kind of things, so you know where these particular graphics came from. So these are getting into just graphics I had, not graphics that I rendered, just so you can, and I tried to do a good variety to see, you know, how different things print at different sizes as well. So this was just a watercolor blob, and I did it at different sizes. And then you'll notice that I have some graphics here. This says EPS and JPEG, so these are just seeing if they print any different. Traditionally, EPS usually print better than JPEG, so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, visually we see no difference here, but it'll be interesting to see if there's any difference in the print file. Again, varying sizes of different things and varying gradients, variant shades, varying style of graphics, just to give us an idea. Again, here's another one. I just did it in 2 different sizes to compare. And you know, full shading on everything to see how it looks. And then here you'll start to see I did an EPS, JPEG, PNG, PDF, and it'll be interesting to see if there's any difference in these at all. JPEG, PNG, EPS, again, will it look any different when it's printed? It doesn't look any different here, but that doesn't mean it won't look different. Again, here's an AI, EPS, JPEG, and SVG. If you don't know me, no, I love flamingos, so of course I had to use flamingos. Again, EPS and JPEG. And my guess is in this particular view, the EPS looks a little darker. So my guess, the EPS is going to actually print a little darker than the JPEG. Some full-size images. This was the PSD version, and here is a similar image that's the JPEG, just so you have a point of comparison. And then the last section of the book is I just took all the fonts that we used, most of the fonts that we used previously. I have 3 pages of each font, and I have varying sizes with the same line spacing. So this is Athlesis, 12 point, 11 point, 10 point, and these are all at 16 with a 16-point line spacing. On the next page is the same, except this is 15-point line spacing, and then the last page for Athlesis is 14-point line spacing. So this will give you a good comparison of what font looks good at what size and what line spacing. You can, and the size of fonts are going to greatly vary because, you know, fonts are different. So this is Garamond. Oh, that's a mistake. That's probably not Athlesis, so I need to correct that. This is actually Caslon. So this is what Caslon looks like, so that's an error. Warnock Pro. Bookmania. This is the one that I said doesn't look all that great on screen, but it prints wonderfully. And you'll notice it's a little bit larger. So if you were to use this font, you can go down, then go smaller than your normal font size. And this is a font that is available on Adobe Fonts. ITC Esprit is my favorite, and it's kind of like Bookmania, where it's a little bit bigger than your normal ones. And I don't think this one is available. I'm gonna check real quick to see if it is available. Esprit. Nope, this one is not available on Adobe Fonts. This is an old one that I had on a CD. But you can probably get it. It's a good font to have in your collection. You can probably get it on fonts.com. Might be on the high-end version though. It might be a little expensive. So yeah, single versions. Let's see if you get the package of it, how much it is. Yeah, $234 for the package, so you may not want to invest in that one. I'm thankful that I have it already. It really is a great font though. Electra is probably the most common font that is used by traditional publishers. That's a little note. It's not Garamond, it's Electra. So it does a really good job. Arno Pro is a small font. Book Antiqua, this is another one. This is a Microsoft font. A font that comes from Microsoft. And it looks okay on screen, but it looks great in print. I remember getting a book in the mail from a client, and I opened it up. I couldn't remember what font I used, and I opened it up and I was like, oh my gosh, that font looks fabulous. And it ended up being Book Antiqua. So Adobe Johnson Pro is a font that actually is a lot smaller, but it looks good. Bookman Old Style is a pretty large font. Californian is a small font, but it looks really good. It's more of a modern font. It kind of has a look of Electra. Century Schoolbook, Classic. Libra Baskerville, this is a Google font. It is huge. I would recommend this for a children's book. I probably would never use it for a novel though. Palatino Linotype is a classic, another font that comes with Microsoft. Again, Georgia is another one of those that comes with Microsoft. Perpetua is a smaller font, but it looks good. I mean, and this is a font that you could probably go up in size to like 13 point for certain situations. New Century School Book is a big font. It's a good classic too. And then Bembo is a smaller font and probably looks better at the smaller line spacing. It's probably a little too spaced out with 16-point line spacing. Burling is a good font to use. It's a little larger. Sabon is another great font. Utopia is a little different. Dante, ITC Stone Serif is a great font. I think that may be on Adobe Fonts. If not, it's on my Adobe Font folder. Merriweather, this is a Google Fonts. It actually looks really good in print because it's a little bit darker. You know, when things look bolder on the screen, when they actually print for POD, they usually look pretty good. Laura is another Google font, and it is a little lighter, but it still looks pretty good. It actually looks good on screen and in print, so this is a font that I actually use on my website. Crimson Text is actually a font that Vellum uses. It is a Google font. Cormorant Medium kind of has a cross between a Garamond and a Caslon feel to it. There's also a Cormorant Infant, and it is a great font to use for children's books. Anytime a font has infant at the end, it typically means that it is kind of a primary font, meaning that the A's do not have, you know, the little swoosh up top. It actually has just a circle with a line to create the A. So it's not a two-story font, I guess you could say. So it's Cormorant Infant. This is Allegria. This is another Google font. Old Standard is another Google font. And that's the back of the book. So this guide is a 510-page guide to help you decide what fonts you want to use, how you want your graphics to look. Be sure to go to Amazon and look for it. And let me know what you think if you do get it. I hope it is a useful guide to you. And I hope this is a 6x9, and I'll probably be doing like a 5x8, maybe with some different layouts and different fonts, just so you'll have a good idea of different size, you know, how things look at the different sizes, because fonts are going to look different, and you should change those settings based on what size book you have. And also, I'll probably, for this one, I did a matte cover, and for the 5x8 version, I'll probably do a gloss cover, just so it's always good to have that in your collection, so when clients ask you their opinion, you know, you can tell them. Or if you're an author as well, you can decide whether you want the gloss or the matte cover. My preference is matte, but there are some cases and some situations I will do gloss. All right, that's it for now. I hope you enjoy. Just go to Amazon, but how does it print? I'm only using KDP on this because I specifically want to know, you know, how it looks with KD print. You're gonna get some variation across the board. Like I ordered 3 books. 2 of those books may be different from one. They may look a little different there's so many different factors that cause things to look different when printing. Same printer, maybe 6 or 7 books later, it may print a little lighter, may print a little darker. They do use multiple printers in different locations, so they may have different equipment, different settings, so there's a lot of different factors that go into it. And just know that you're going to get variety across the board. And but that happens with offset as well. The beginning, like the first book printed on an offset press, is going to have a little bit of variation from that last book printed on the offset press. So just know those things happen. It's just like the spine on a book. Sometimes it's going to be dead perfect and sometimes it's not. Just the nature of the game. All right, guys, thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoy.